식량을 통제하면 인류를 통제할 수 있다. 헨리 키신저가 했다는 말이죠. 고대사를 보면 강력한 어떤 제국이 다른 약한 국가를 침공할 때 그 나라의 이제 주요 도시를 포위하고 그렇게 되면 이제 그 도시의 거주민들이 성 안으로 들어가죠. 성 안으로 들어가서 방어를 하게 되는데 그러면 이제 포위군은 그냥 성을 둘러싼 채 기다리기만 하면 돼요. 성 안에 식량이 다 떨어지면 이제 항복할 수밖에 없으니까. 이렇게 이제 고대에는 한 개의 뭐 도시나 어떤 작은 국가 차원에서 이루어졌던 식량, 뭐 물에 대한 식량이나 수자원, 물에 대한 통제가 현재는 이제 글로벌한 차원에서 시도되고 있죠. 뭐 유엔의 어젠다 2030, 지속가능 개발 목표 SDG, 뭐 세계경제 포럼의 지속가능한 미래 이런 게 다 이제 글로벌한 차원에서 식량, 에너지, 자원에 대한 통제 계획인데. 뭐 유엔이나 세계경제 포럼 같은 글로벌리스트의 기관, 다른 말로 이제 일루미나티의 기관들이 일하는 방식은 어떤 위기 상황을 만들어내고 이런 위기가 발생했으니까 이렇게 대응해야 한다. 이렇게 이제 선포한 후에 뭐 탑다운 방식으로 자신들이 미리 계획해 놓은 정책을 강요하는 식으로 이루어지죠. 그래서 각국 대중들이 그런 정책에 순응하게 되면 뭐 식량이나 에너지, 자원에 대한 글로벌리스트의 통제권은 한층 더 강화되게 되고요. 여기서 이제 세계경제 포럼의 클라우스 슈밥이 한 발언을 잠깐 듣고 이어갈게요.
History is truly at a turning point. In times of crisis, the role of governments is more important and more relevant than ever.
The World Economic Forum is actually a critical part of implementing this UN agenda.
위기는 실제로 존재할 수도 있지만 존재하지 않는 걸 이제 미디어를 통해서 만들어낼 수도 있어요. 그리고 이제 많은 경우 위기를 해결하기 위한 방안은 그 실제 목표인 통제권 강화와는 상관없는 고상한 목적으로 포장돼서 제시되죠. 뭐 환경을 보존하고 멸종 위기종을 보호하기 위해서다. 생태계를 지키기 위해서다. 뭐 국민의 건강을 지키기 위해서다. 뭐 이런 식으로요. 최근에 이제 미국에서는 댐을 파괴해서 자연 상태로 원상 복구하는 일이 지금 유행처럼 뭐 계속 일어나고 있죠. 이것에 관해서 그 이포크 타임즈 채널에서 좋은 영상을 올려주셨는데 조회수가 얼마 안 돼서 제 채널에서 이 영상의 좀 중요 부분을 소개하려고 해요. 뭐 생태계 복원, 멸종 위기종 보호 이런 명분으로 댐을 파괴해서 이 댐에서 나오는 수자원에 의존하는 농축산업을 파괴하는 캘리포니아의 사례. 그리고 이제 질소 비료가 기후 변화를 뭐 가져온다 이런 뭐 같지 않은 이유로 비료 사용을 제한해서 곡물 가격 폭등을 불러일으킨 스리랑카의 사례 이런 사례들이 나오는데 이러한 일들은 그 글로벌한 차원에서 계속 시도될 것으로 보이고 우리나라도 작년 말에 그 농민들한테 지급되는 비료 가격 보조 예산을 전액 삭감하겠다 그런 발표가 있어서 좀 논란이 있었죠. 뭐, 좀 보다 많은 분들이 농업, 식량에 대한 자멸적인 정책의 위험성에 대해서 좀 인지하시고, 또 어떤 목소리 내셨으면 하는 바람입니다.
We love this land, but given this global agenda that, you know, feels like it's in our backyard now, I don't know if my sisters and I will be able to inherit this place and pass on and keep what my parents have worked so hard for. If and when those dams are destroyed, it will shut off the water that we have rights to. It's going to totally impact our livelihood. I think it's criminal. What the State Water Resources Board is telling us is that they want to see the coho in this river. But there is no historical evidence of the coho ever being here. They're using a picture of fish that look like salmon. And that's their only best available science that coho existed here.
In addition to dam removals, the state of California has also enacted emergency drought regulations threatening to prohibit ranchers from using their own groundwater.
My husband and I bought a little ranch when we got married 7 years ago, and we run cows on that ranch. We're in a real pinch right now as cattle producers in Scott Valley, where as of last September, the state water board has introduced some new emergency drought regulations that are threatening to curtail 100% of our irrigation water that we pump out of the ground. This is all being done in the name of saving the coho salmon.
If this continues down the path it's going, what do you think will happen to your farm?
My property right now doesn't have a lot of value without the water rights that go with it. Water is what makes everything work. In Scott Valley, you can't do anything without water. And so we would have to move, because if we can't ranch in Scott Valley, there's nothing else to do.
It seems like the salmon are not technically endangered anywhere. You can find them in stores, you can eat them, yet they're invoking the Endangered Species Act to essentially take away your water rights. Do you feel like the salmon is the real reason, or is there something going on behind the scenes?
It's definitely not about the salmon. It's about control of water.
It has nothing to do about fish. This is all about rewilding, regardless of the impacts. This is a consortium between Department of Water Resources and California Fish and Game. They are moving to secure all of the control of all the water as we speak in the state of California, now including groundwater.
Water is the thing. Water is the thing that these globalists are going to use to control everything, because we all can't live without water.
They used to have double the GDP per person per capita income of India. Now they're starving.
Is this really what happens to a country when these policies are enacted? Can implementing Agenda 2030 really lead to the collapse of an entire nation? Sri Lanka is located in South Asia, just off the southern coast of India. The Sri Lankan countryside is made up of collective villages filled with small subsistence farmers with unique challenges. Like, for instance, having to climb up into tree houses to sing the ancient songs of their ancestors to keep elephants from rampaging their crops. But to be honest, in terms of threats, elephants pale in comparison to a government that is pushing forward Agenda 2030 with a strict agricultural mandate, which is now threatening to destroy the lives of the farmers who have been the backbone of the Sri Lankan economy for decades.
Rice is our main staple, and in early 1950s, we have been importing 60% of our rice requirement from other countries.
So then moving forward from 1952 all the way up to 2020, a lot has changed, right?
Lots of changes. Our farmers started using synthetic fertilizer in 1952, and that helped us to achieve a very high yield. And starting from 2008, we have been producing more rice than we can consume. In other words, there was a surplus. That was a leap jump forward.
Imagine that. Through sheer ingenuity, hard work, perseverance, and scientific discipline, the Sri Lankan people developed a paddy rice crop that was among the highest yielding in the entire world, allowing them to not only feed their own people, but also to export the crop to surrounding countries, making some much-needed money for the national treasury in the process. But this path to prosperity, as well as the food security of the whole country, was inextricably linked to the use of nitrogen-based fertilizer.
More than 90% of the farmers are using synthetic fertilizer. Let me let you know why fertilizer is required. If you want to get 5 metric tons of rice, the paddy plant requires about 105 kilograms of nitrogen. If you don't put those nutrients into the soil becomes infertile. You need fertilizer to make sure the required amount of nitrogen can be supplied to the plant. If not, you will not get the yield.
Here's a fun fact. This country is actually not called Sri Lanka. This country is officially called the Democratic Socialist Republic of Sri Lanka. And as an openly socialist republic, the government and the president who is in charge of the government can make sweeping changes to the entire country on a whim, which is exactly what happened.
The government of Sri Lanka banned the import of artificial fertilizers, pesticides, and weedicides.
Overnight, the Sri Lankan president, Mr. Gotabaya Rajapaksa, banned the use and import of chemical fertilizers. The entire Sri Lankan rice paddy crop had been bred for 6 decades to work symbiotically with chemical fertilizers. And so taking away the fertilizers without any sort of a transition process was like taking out 2 legs from underneath the table. The result was obvious.
Sri Lanka has officially defaulted on its foreign debt.
The country's worst ever economic crisis since independence.
The country today announced that it is defaulting on its debt worth $51 billion.
Protesters holding President Gotabaya Rajapaksa responsible for the nation's economic meltdown.